Imagine walking through the vibrant streets of New York City, unaware that beneath your feet lies a dark, labyrinthine world of decay and dread. This isn't just a story of sewer rats. It's a chilling tale of mutant creatures born from sinister experiments. For decades, eerie whispers and frenzied scratching echoed through the tunnels, unseen by the bustling city above. But what if these horrors started to surface? Dive with me into the haunting investigation of a maintenance worker who uncovered the city's darkest secret. You'll never look at New York the same way again.
My name is Jack Thompson, and I've worked for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection for the past 15 years. Most of my job involves routine maintenance and inspections of the vast network of sewers that lie beneath the city. It's not glamorous work, but it's essential, and I've grown used to the dim, wet tunnels that most people never think about. I know these tunnels better than anyone. They're like a second home to me, though I've never been under any illusions about the dangers that lurk in the darkness. It all started about a month ago when reports began coming in about unusual sightings and strange sounds in the older, more isolated sections of the sewer system. At first, I brushed them off as just another urban legend or the wild imaginations of the city's homeless population who sometimes sought refuge down here. But the more I heard, the more I realized that these reports were consistent and came from different sources. The city officials dismissed these concerns, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. One evening, as I was wrapping up my shift, I received a call from my supervisor about a blockage reported in one of the oldest tunnels. It was a routine job, or so I thought. Armed with my flashlight and equipment, I descended into the depths of the city. The further I went, the more the air seemed to change, thicker, heavier, and tinged with a strange, unpleasant odor. As I navigated the labyrinthine network of tunnels, I began to notice the subtle signs of something amiss. Scraps of fabric, broken tools, and, disturbingly, the gnawed remains of what appeared to be a stray cat. Curiosity and a sense of duty drove me deeper into the maze of tunnels, even as a gnawing unease settled in my stomach. The walls were covered in graffiti, some of it fresh, but it was the enormous scratch marks that caught my attention. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen before, deep and ragged, as if made by something with enormous claws. The usual sounds of dripping water and distant echoes were now accompanied by something more sinister. Faint whispers and the unmistakable sound of scratching, growing louder with each step. The tunnels seemed endless, a labyrinth of decay and shadow beneath the bustling city above. Each night, I ventured deeper into the unseen, armed only with a flashlight and my resolve. Scratching noises echoed through the eerie corridors, a haunting symphony of frenzied whispers that set my nerves on edge. On one particularly claustrophobic evening, I stumbled upon enormous scratch marks gouged into the walls, the stench of mutilated carcasses lingering in the air. The desperation in my gut grew as I realized these weren't the work of any ordinary rats. Evidence of something monstrous gnawed at my mind as I continued my rounds. The unsettling pattern of disappearances from the labyrinthine sewers was becoming impossible to ignore. The gnawing fear that something unnatural was lurking in the shadows gripped me. The constant surveillance by unseen eyes made every step feel like a trespass. I couldn't shake the dread that this infestation was more than it seemed. Each discovery was more horrifying than the last, the creeping sensation of being watched ever present. The air was thick with decay and the faint, eerie whispering of something lurking just out of sight. I documented the grotesque scenes, knowing that these mutilated remains were part of a larger, more sinister picture. The relentless scratching echoed in my mind, a constant reminder that I was delving into something far beyond a simple pest problem. My nights were filled with dread, haunted by the unseen creatures I could only imagine. The stench of decay became my constant companion as I ventured deeper into the unseen depths. Every new clue pointed to a frenzied infestation of mutant rats, each discovery more mutilated and grotesque than the last. The claustrophobic tunnels seemed to close in around me, the relentless scratching and whispering driving me to the edge of sanity. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was creeping just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. Desperation gnawed at me, knowing that these horrors were festering beneath the feet of unsuspecting New Yorkers. As I delved further into the labyrinth, the sense of dread grew more intense. The eerie silence was occasionally broken by the unsettling sounds of scratching and whispering, as if the shadows themselves were alive. The mutilated remains of animals were a stark reminder of the monstrous presence lurking below. I felt the relentless surveillance of unseen eyes, a creeping paranoia that began to consume me. The frenzied, gnawing fear that I was in over my head kept me moving forward, determined to uncover the truth about this haunting infestation. My curiosity drove me to research the eerie occurrences in the sewers. I scoured old newspapers and online forums, uncovering chilling tales of mutant creatures and unexplained disappearances. These stories spanned decades, from whispered accounts of giant rats in the 1950s to recent reports of frenzied attacks. The gnawing dread in my gut grew as I pieced together a terrifying picture. It seemed these creatures had been lurking in the shadows, unseen and relentless, for far longer than anyone realized. Desperation pushed me to dig deeper into the city's hidden history. I visited libraries and archives, combing through documents that spoke of secret experiments and chemical spills. The connection between these historical events and the current infestation became increasingly clear. It was as if the labyrinthine tunnels below the city had become a breeding ground for these mutants. Each revelation added to the creeping sense of dread that haunted my every step, the relentless scratching at the edge of my consciousness growing louder. I reached out to experts and old-timers who might have insights into the eerie happenings below. Their stories were filled with shadows and frenzied encounters, painting a picture of a city haunted by unseen horrors. One man spoke of a nightmarish incident in the 1980s, where entire maintenance crews vanished without a trace. These accounts, filled with desperation and dread, made my own experiences seem even more sinister. The more I learned, the more relentless the whispering in the back of my mind became. As my research deepened, I found a disturbing pattern. The city's dark underbelly was a perfect breeding ground for these mutant rats. The labyrinth of tunnels and the constant stench of decay provided the ideal conditions for an infestation to thrive. Each new piece of information added to the frenzied sense of urgency I felt. The relentless surveillance by these unseen creatures was no longer just a theory. It was a chilling reality. I realized that the scratching I heard at night was the sound of something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. The more I uncovered, the more claustrophobic my world became. The walls seemed to close in around me as the truth emerged. These mutants were not just a product of nature. They were the result of human folly and neglect. The relentless drive to uncover the truth was fueled by a growing sense of dread and desperation. The whispering in the shadows grew louder, the scratching more insistent. I knew I was on the brink of discovering something horrifying, something that would change everything I thought I knew about the city. Above ground, New York was a bustling metropolis, full of life and energy. But beneath the surface, in the claustrophobic depths of the sewers, a different reality lurked. The contrast was stark as I walked through iconic landmarks like Times Square, knowing that just below, the unseen horrors were creeping ever closer. My investigation took me to the city's historical archives, where I pored over old maps and documents. The labyrinth of tunnels mirrored the complexity of the city above, each twist and turn a reminder of the darkness lurking below. I visited neighborhoods with high rates of disappearances and strange sightings, talking to locals who whispered of eerie occurrences. Their stories were filled with dread and desperation, painting a picture of a city haunted by unseen forces. The stench of decay seemed to follow me everywhere, a constant reminder of the frenzied infestation below. Each conversation added to the creeping sense of unease, the relentless surveillance by these unseen creatures becoming more apparent. The shadow of fear hung over these areas, a stark contrast to the bustling city above. In the depths of the library, I found records of old experiments conducted in the sewers, hidden from public view. The documents spoke of chemical spills and genetic mutations, painting a chilling picture of how these mutant rats might have come to be. The more I read, the more the gnawing sense of dread grew. It was clear that the city's underbelly was a perfect breeding ground for these horrors. The labyrinth of tunnels, filled with decay and darkness, had become a frenzied breeding ground for these mutant creatures. My journey took me to the underbelly of the city, where the homeless and forgotten made their homes. Their stories were filled with whispers of giant rats and mutilated bodies, adding to the eerie picture I was piecing together. The relentless scratching and the stench of decay were ever present, a haunting reminder of the horrors lurking below. The desperation in their voices mirrored my own growing fear. It was clear that these unseen creatures were not just a figment of my imagination. They were a very real and relentless threat. As I delved deeper into the hidden face of New York, the sense of dread grew more intense. The city's iconic landmarks took on a sinister tone, knowing what lay beneath. The creeping horror of the mutant rats, the relentless scratching, and the eerie whispering became an obsession. The labyrinth of tunnels and the stench of decay were a stark contrast to the vibrant life above ground. My investigation was uncovering a nightmare that had been festering for decades, a frenzied infestation that threatened to spill over into the world above. The eerie scratching sounds and the unseen shadows in the tunnels gnawed at my mind, driving me to find out more. My research led me to a labyrinth of historical records and urban legends, revealing a chilling pattern. Reports of frenzied giant rats, whispering in the dark, dated back decades. It wasn't just about rodents. It was a tale of mutant infestation and dread. The more I uncovered, the more I felt the relentless surveillance of unseen eyes. The sense of desperation grew as I connected these findings to mysterious disappearances in the city's underbelly. What was once just a creepy suspicion was becoming a terrifying reality. Old newspaper clippings spoke of mutilated animals and missing people, all linked to the city's decaying sewer system. Each new piece of information felt like a shadow creeping closer, a growing dread gnawing at my sanity. As I walked through the bustling streets of New York, the stark contrast between the vibrant life above and the decaying, haunted tunnels below was surreal. Landmarks like Times Square and Central Park felt like mere facades hiding a dark secret. I visited the public library, digging through archives that told tales of eerie, shadowy figures lurking in the depths. Conversations with locals unveiled whispers of the city's forgotten horrors. The stench of the sewers, the unseen menace of the mutant rats, and the relentless scratching at the edge of my consciousness became a constant reminder of the lurking danger. Each step in my investigation, from the busy cafes to the quiet, forgotten corners of the city, revealed more about the labyrinth beneath us. The sense of dread and claustrophobia grew, knowing that under the city's glamorous surface, something monstrous was lurking, watching. Just when I thought I was getting closer to the truth, obstacles emerged from every shadowy corner. False leads planted by those wishing to keep the infestation a secret led me on wild goose chases. My encounters with the frenzied and desperate homeless living in the tunnels added layers of danger and complexity. Their eerie tales of giant rats and mutilated bodies were both a warning and a plea. Back at work, my supervisors dismissed my findings, suggesting I was losing my mind. Each day felt like a relentless battle against unseen enemies, both human and mutant. The sense of dread was relentless, with each setback intensifying my paranoia. I started to feel as if the very shadows were mocking my efforts. My journey through the decaying sewers turned into a nightmarish dance with danger, the claustrophobic tunnels becoming a labyrinth of despair and deceit. The psychological toll was devastating. My nights were plagued by vivid, horrifying dreams of giant rats with gnawing teeth and unseen eyes following my every move. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. I began to hear whispering in the dark, even when I was above ground. My paranoia grew, convinced that the mutant infestation was not just below but somehow creeping into my life. Relationships strained as my obsession with the unseen horrors consumed me. The sense of dread was unrelenting, the shadow of the sewers haunting me even in daylight. Every scratch, every whisper felt like a frenzied attack on my sanity. The stench of the tunnels clung to me, a constant reminder of the decay and horror lurking beneath. The fear that these creatures were watching, waiting, turned my life into a claustrophobic nightmare. I felt trapped in a relentless cycle of dread and desperation, unable to escape the creeping terror. The culmination of my investigation led me deep into the heart of the labyrinthine sewers. Armed with only a flashlight, I ventured into the most decayed and forgotten parts of the tunnels. The stench was unbearable, the air thick with a sense of unseen menace. As I reached what seemed like the epicenter of the infestation, I found myself surrounded by the frenzied, scratching sounds of giant rats. Shadows moved in the corner of my vision, eerie and relentless. The sheer size of the mutant creatures was terrifying, their gnawing teeth glinting in the dim light. It was a life-or-death struggle as I fought to survive, my every move watched by the eerie, unseen eyes. The claustrophobic tunnel closed in, the stench of decay overwhelming. In a desperate bid to escape, I stumbled upon the truth. This infestation was not natural. It was the result of illegal experiments, a dark secret hidden deep within the city's underbelly. The revelation was as terrifying as the creatures themselves, a chilling testament to human folly and horror. In my frantic escape, I stumbled upon a hidden laboratory, its decayed equipment a testament to long-abandoned experiments. The shadows of the past loomed large, with old documents revealing a sinister truth. These giant rats were not natural but the result of genetic experiments gone horribly wrong, covered up by powerful authorities. The shocking twist was the involvement of a familiar figure, my own supervisor. He had been part of the initial research team, working under the guise of public health improvements. The eerie realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The very person dismissing my concerns was part of the horrifying secret. The dread intensified as I connected the dots, realizing the scope of the cover-up. The frenzied efforts to hide the truth, the mutilated creatures, and the relentless pursuit to silence any whistleblower all led back to him. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about exposing a dark truth buried in the labyrinth of New York's underbelly. The aftermath of my ordeal left me scarred, both physically and mentally. The decaying tunnels and the unseen horrors lurking within them haunted my every thought. I reflected on the fragility of our civilized world, where the beautiful facade of New York hid monstrous secrets in its depths. The stench of the sewers lingered in my memory, a constant reminder of the hidden dangers beneath. Society's neglect had allowed these horrors to fester, growing into an infestation that gnawed at the city's foundations. The relentless pursuit of truth had come at a great cost, but it had also opened my eyes to the unseen battles waged in the shadows. As I pondered the implications, the whispering voices and scratching sounds remained vivid in my mind. The experience had left me wary, always watching for signs of creeping danger. The haunting reality of the mutant rats served as a grim reminder of what can happen when humanity's dark experiments are left unchecked.
Next time you walk the streets of New York, be alert. That creeping shadow in the corner of your eye, or that faint scratching noise, might be more than just a rat. Do you think these mutant horrors still lurk beneath the city, waiting to resurface? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your theories, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. There's more to uncover, and you won't want to miss the next terrifying tale.